Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mythic for Operators. Today we're going to be looking at peer-to-peer connections within Mythic. So right now we are on the active callbacks page, and we have one callback right here, callback 9, that's running as our Kali user on the Kali box. It is the Poseidon agent reaching out over HTTP. We can click this little Wi-Fi icon and see Kali connecting out via HTTP to Mythic. Now, if we go back and look at our payloads, we can see we have this Poseidon binary that's running. We also have this Poseidon peer-to-peer binary that utilizes the Poseidon TCP peer-to-peer profile. Just like we could do in previous videos, we can click the little information icon here and see more details about how this payload is configured. So here we can see that this Poseidon TCP C2 profile takes in, encryption keys, kill date, stuff like that, and a port to open, so port 8085. Great. We're going to go back on our Kali host and run this Poseidon peer-to-peer binary. Great, it's running, port is open. Well, now we need to actually task our current egress agent to connect up to that peer-to-peer running binary. Because it's peer-to-peer, it's never going to reach out directly to Mythic and send in data. It's just binding to a socket waiting for something to talk back to it. So there are a couple different things that we can do. With Poseidon, we have a command called link TCP. So if we do a little help on it, we can see that link TCP, you supply an IP or host name and the port for you to connect to. There are two groups that we can see here. We have parameter group default, which takes the address and the port. We also have another one called Mythic modal, and this takes in a special kind of parameter called connection information that allows us to really dynamically get more insight into what's going on. So let's look at that one first. So if we run link TCP, the first parameter group we see is default, where we had that address and port. So if we're going to run a link command and we knew the host name and port, we could say, link Kali and port 8085. But let's say that this is a little bit more complicated and maybe we're doing connections over SMB and we have randomized pipe names. It's difficult to go back and find what payload, what pipe name, make sure all that's copied correctly. So something you can do with Mythic is this kind of tracking. So we can see here that the moment we switch to this parameter group, Mythic gave us a little toast notification saying, Mythic knows of no host with a peer-to-peer payload. Please add one. So Mythic is tracking what payloads you've created and where they exist. Mythic knows that this egress agent, this just normal Poseidon HTTP agent, exists on this Kali host because we have an egress connection coming back from it. But for these peer-to-peer agents, there's no periodic beaconing coming back from it. So Mythic doesn't know that we ran this Poseidon peer-to-peer agent on this Kali host. So what we do is we simply tell Mythic that we did so. So you can see down here, we click register new. We provide the host name of where we are running that binary. So in this case, Kali. And you can see down here, we have a list of agents we've created with peer-to-peer profiles that we can select and say, this is the specific binary that I placed on this host. So we only have the one, so it's our only option here. So we select it and we say confirm. Now Mythic is tracking that this peer-to-peer payload is running on this host. That's why we can see here, host Kali, this payload. We only have one peer-to-peer profile within it, this Poseidon TCP profile. And here's the same information we're looking at before, that port number, the kill date, encryption keys, all this information. So we can take this now and say, task. We want our egress agent here to reach back, connect to the one that we specified, Kali, on port 8085, and see if you can connect. If you can connect, then we're going to start reporting back information about the remote payload and establish a new callback session. Here you can see we successfully connected, and on next check-in, now we have a linked peer-to-peer agent. So you can look over here in this C2 column. We have a little Wi-Fi icon for our egress agent and a little link icon for our peer-to-peer agent. This is just the same as when we're looking at our installed C2 profiles. Any egress one had a little Wi-Fi icon. Any peer-to-peer profile had a little link icon. We can click these just like we did before, and now we can see that this callback 10 is connected via Poseidon TCP through callback 9 out to Mythic. Now, we can go ahead and interact with this one just like we would others, a PWD. Notice how this check-in is still going up. So this last check-in time, because it is a peer-to-peer agent that's just kind of chilling there, waiting, it's only going to go back to 0 whenever it reports something back to Mythic. So you can see here, it just went back because it just gave us the result of this tasking command. It doesn't get set back to 0 whenever you issue tasks, only whenever data comes back in. So we can see that here. Now we're back through waiting for more tasking to come in. If you want to remove this link, you want to disconnect callback 9 and callback 10, what we can do is Poseidon has an unlink command. And this one is also a little special in Mythic. So we saw before that we could track what payloads exist on what hosts and automatically pull out linking information to help agents more easily connect to each other. We can do the exact same sort of thing, but instead of just looking at payloads on hosts, we can look at existing connected information. So here we have this connection, callback 9 over Poseidon TCP to callback 10. This is the connection that we want to kind of sever. So we'll click task. You can see here that now we issued this unlinked TCP, and here's this UUID. Doesn't mean a whole lot to you as an operator, but this UUID is the identifier for this callback. So internally in Poseidon, it's tracking what agents it's connected to, what callbacks, via these UUIDs. So you can see we tasked it to disconnect, and now this little green icon changed to red. If you click it again, you can see here that now instead of this solid blue line, we have this dotted orange line that's saying we used to have a connection via Poseidon TCP between 10 and 9, and then a existing connection, HTTP, out to Mythic. It's like that's your indicator that this is how you were connected, but you're no longer connected that way. Now, if we want to reconnect, we can either go back through that modal process, or because this is something a little bit simpler with just a port, we can issue that tasking kind of that first way that it was indicating. So we can do link TCP, the hostname or IP, and then the port that we're interested in, so 8085. We'll submit that and see the agent is picking it up. Just like we were doing before, it's reaching back out to that host to try and identify, can I reach you? Are you still running? We can see it's successfully connected. We went back from red to green. And here we have that same information again. Callback 10 over Poseidon TCP to callback 9, HTTP out to Mythic. So that's kind of the basics of peer-to-peer and connection disconnections within Mythic. This is Poseidon specific, but these functionality is available for all agents. You can either have these more in-depth modal options that allow you to not have to remember all this information, or you can always support the kind of shorthand notation like we did here with just link, host, IP, port, connect in, and do stuff that way. In future videos, we'll dive more in depth into these sorts of graph views so you can see what these additional properties are, how to read and manipulate this sort of information. We'll also do a dive into this graph layout and kind of how you can leverage that for your operations.